Storytelling is so much more to me than just a good story. It's about the refinement, and it's about the details. Today, we'll be tearing through the details of nodes. Hey everybody, I just want to first say I'm so glad you chose to click on this video today. So today what we're going to be going over is specifically how to create tears and rips using only nodes in Blender. So if I click on the clothing or geometry here and toggle into my modeling viewport, you'll see that there's actually no physical tears in the clothing. And in fact, when I made this kind of mesh see-through hat piece here, I used a similar method that I'm going to show you with how I made these rips and tears in the clothes today. Let's begin so you guys can learn how to make rips and clothing using only nodes. So the first thing I'm going to do to start us off here is I am going to select this hood, which I will be using to demonstrate this method. And I'm going to be giving it a brand new material so we can start nice and fresh. And so now we have a new material with none of the rips or tears that we had on the other one. And now what we're going to do is I'm just going to toggle over here into my viewport shading so it's a little easier on my computer to demonstrate this. So now with that article of clothing you're working with selected, head over to your shading bar. And with the hood selected, now I'm going to make sure I hit new for my material. And you'll see this principled BSDF shader pop up. So the first thing we need to do over here on the right side with material properties, we're going to scroll all the way to the very bottom. And you're going to see a couple of different options here. So first we're going to check on backface culling. And then we're going to head over here to blend mode and make sure it's set to alpha clip, as well as shadow mode is also set to alpha clip. So now what we're going to do is we need to choose what kind of texture we want to cut out of our clothes. Typically, noise will do very well for whatever purposes you have in mind. So I'm going to do Shift A, search. Then I'm just going to type in noise and then hit enter. So now that you have your noise texture placed, we can even see if it will work already. So you can just take your color and hook it straight into your alpha. So once you've done that, you should see it will do one of two things depending on the size of your model. It'll either cut the clothing into smithereens like it did here, or you won't really fully be able to see it and it'll look super duper teeny tiny. So with that in mind, now let's go over here. So for me, it cut it into smithereens. So all I need to do is I need to up the scale of this noise texture. And before we keep messing with the scale, let's now up our detail. And we're just going to up this detail all the way to 15 for this noise texture. And now where we're going to notice one of the biggest differences is with our distortion, which we are also going to up just a hair, like around there. So now one thing I'm noticing is that it's cutting still slightly too much of our clothes here. So the next thing we can do is use Shift A, search, and then we're going to type in color ramp. And this will give us even more control with exactly how much this node affects our clothing. Whichever way you adjust it, it'll kind of lessen the effect. And so we're going to mostly mess with this white one over here. And let's just gently bring it over. And you'll see already we've got a pretty nice looking raggedy hood here. However, now maybe you want even more control over what you're doing exactly to that material. So the next thing you can do, and I want to preface this by saying make sure Node Wrangler is installed to your Blender. It's an add-on that comes with Blender, so all you need to do is go to Edit, preferences, and then in add-ons, make sure you type in Node Wrangler, and then just check that box, and it should install, and all the things I'm talking about should work. So the next thing we need to do is make sure your noise texture is selected, and then we're going to do Control T. And by doing that, now we've got our texture coordinate as well as our mapping already hooked up to our noise texture. However, one thing I'm not loving is that the generated is the first one that goes into vector. So let's move from generated over here to object into vector. So once you've connected that object to the vector, you've got a couple of things that you could do using this same effect. For instance, as I mentioned before, you'll see that she has this kind of mesh over her hat. So with this, and I'm clicking on this to kind of show you guys, literally all I have that's different on this one is the magic texture is the main texture that is creating this kind of mesh effect. So on this one I have the noise, on this one it's the magic texture, which is mainly doing this. However, I can even achieve something similar as long as I have mapping with my nodes, and all I need to do is just kind of mess with these different scales. So let's see what happens if I just up the Z scale, and maybe if I up the X scale as well. And now you're probably looking at this and you're like, oh, I don't really see a difference. Well, let's head back over to our other viewport, and you'll see, and maybe I'll even do a quick render just so you guys can really get a taste for what has happened here. If I go in on this hood that she's wearing and I just hit render image, now in seconds we have already created this kind of effect where you can see through this hood. However, there is some refinement to do that would actually end up making it look more like this mesh, but you get the idea of what's actually possible when using nodes to create these fabric effects. I really hope that this tutorial was helpful for you guys, and if it was, please consider subscribing. It really helps my channel, and if you can do any one of these three things, it'll have meant the world to me. If this video is helpful, please consider subscribing, liking, or commenting. Any of those things will have helped me greatly, and I would really appreciate it. And I just want to say thank you so much for choosing this video. Have a great day.